Welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast, your number one source of all things bodybuilding. Be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on future episodes. Now, here's your host, Leroy Rollins.
All right, people, welcome to the Bodybuilding Banter podcast, hashtag Canadian edition. You've got three Canadian boys here with Breton McNeil, myself, and Connor. What's going on, boys?
Not too much, man. Not too much. Just like you said, getting excited for, we're all prepping for the same show, which I think is super cool. Never really had the opportunity to, people I've met through social media and stuff like that, kind of bodybuilding friends to get to compete with other people like that. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat for sure. Just kind of getting back into the gym in my province. I guess PEI was a little bit ahead of Nova Scotia and parts of Ontario for sure. So I feel pretty fortunate to be in this kind of secluded area for this event. That's going to go down in history as something that we all had to live through. So I'm very fortunate and blessed to be in probably one of the safest spots in Canada.
Yeah.
In case the listeners don't know, PEI is a small island on the east coast of Canada. I think the population here is about 138,000.
That's my city.
Yeah, I know. Eh? All in all, I think we've had 27 cases, and they all recovered. Now, I mean, they're opening things back up. People don't quite know what's going to happen from here, but so far we've been really lucky to not have been hit as hard as other spots, for sure.
Yeah, for those listening, Canada's huge. If you're not from Canada, it's hard to gauge an actual perspective how big the country is. But I'm in Ontario, so central Canada. Toronto, for most people, will know that city at least. So basically, like the population hub of the country is where I live. So we're a shit show, to be honest. Ontario as a whole, Ontario's not too bad, but Toronto is very, very bad. So for you guys, obviously down east, it's not as bad as it is here. We're starting to open up. We got the go-ahead Friday that like barbershops, tattoo parlors, patios at restaurants, they can start opening back up. But still no real word on gyms. I know Good Life has sent out some emails and Fit for Less as well, saying they have like tentative dates, which I think is the end of June. But again, that's all based on what the government says. So they can have their rules and regulations in place, but if the government still says no, then we're still screwed.
Yeah, that's funny. So it sounds like you guys are just a few weeks behind us, because we had barbershops and various restaurants and things open up May 22nd.
Okay.
And then they progressed us to phase 2 quicker than their anticipated plan. I think they were planning for phase 2 to start June 12th or something like that, but it started June 1st because we had no cases, so They progressed it really quick. So it's really hard to predict, what's going to happen next.
Yeah, like Ontario, what had happened too was originally they were going to open the province over these phases, but people were saying, like, look, like right now, outside of Toronto, it's not that big of a deal. Like in Kingston, where I live, I think we have one active case, and we've only had one active case for weeks, if that. So they've implemented now these regional openings. So now different parts of Ontario are going to go into phase 2 sooner than others. So we've got the go-ahead here in Kingston, for example, that we can start doing things on this coming Friday, but Toronto can't. So I don't know what that potentially means. Like, are people just going to travel? You know what I mean? Like, are people from Toronto going to come here? Are they going to go elsewhere? Same with Ottawa, you know what I mean? So I don't know how it's going to pan out, but I mean, I've been at work through this whole thing and talked to a lot of people, and I would say 98% of people are like, open the place up. If you're at risk, be precautious, stay home. But if you're of, sound mind, young, not even young, but like the mean age of this disease is like 80 something. But like, if you're not at risk to like be very, very sick from this, let's get her going.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. I personally had a few weeks off work, and I was really happy to get back, just because I like having structure. And
Yeah.
I mean, I did my best during quarantine. Everyone was like, make a routine, but it's just like there's no pressure to keep you on the routine, right? I didn't really fall off my diet or
Yeah.
miss any workouts. It was kind of just the tail end of my off season, so it didn't. I mean, I had to learn how to train in my basement, but as far as like a routine and just being like, meals on the hour every hour
Yeah.
and sleep at the right time and waking up early and just getting my day like done the way I want, it was just not my favorite. So
Yeah.
it was definitely good to get back to work for sure.
No, for sure. All right, let's dive into the big talking point. So all three of us are competing in the same show. Not in the same classes, which is kind of cool because we'll all be doing our own thing, but with the umbrella that we're at the same show. So with everything being postponed, obviously all over the world, not just Canada, but for us speaking specifically in Canada, a lot of shows have now been pushed back to the earliest seems to be September. There's some dates floating around. I know in Ontario, October now is getting really busy. So for the three of us, for those listening, we're prepping for a show in Edmonton, WNBF Edmonton, which is a pro and amateur show. So a big show for you two especially, but for me also potentially as well. So all of us will be flying to the other side of the country to do the thing. So October 24th, this past weekend, was 20 weeks out. Breton, you go first. How are we doing at 20 weeks out?
All right. Yeah, so things are going good, man. To be honest, I had kind of a big competition season lined up for myself. I was actually pretty focused on going to Worlds as well this year.
Yep.
But you know what I mean? Everything we just talked about, things are so up in the air that I kind of decided, you know what? I need to compete this year to kind of stay eligible as a pro with the WNBF. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the Edmonton show. I did it 2 years ago. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. So I'm just going to focus on that one show, and I'm actually going to, I talked about it a little bit on my Instagram, but I'm just going to self-coach myself this year as well. I have in the past, and you know what I did for the majority of the prep when I did win my pro card there in 2018.
Yep.
But probably the last, 8 to 10 weeks, I started working with Patty Lifts on Instagram. We've talked about him. I'm sure you guys know him.
Yep.
So again, he's a great guy, and I'm sure I'm definitely going to use his advice and second eye when things get deeper into the prep. But more or less, I just wanted to kind of experiment this season, have some fun with things, coach myself, get some more data about everything, and just enjoy the experience. But right now, at 20 weeks out, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like where I was compared to 20 weeks out in 2018, I'm feeling a little bit leaner. I think I got some more muscle mass and everything now. My calories are a little bit higher starting off as well. So
Nice.
Right now, I feel like I'm at a pretty good point with things and just looking forward to kind of continuing the process.
Sweet. Connor, where are we at?
So I am in a sort of similar situation to Breton in that I was supposed to compete this year to keep my pro status. I'm not going to lie. I think had I not been in that situation, I would probably be pretty cool to sit the year out. But it is what it is. And, I made the plan to do this show literally probably the week after winning my pro card because I just looked at it. I messaged Leo King to ask him if it would work out just because the rule is for 1 year. But given that there's no WNBF pro shows in Canada except for the Edmonton one, that one put me at about 13 months post pro card win. So
Okay.
I was like, you know what? I can just try and cheat the system a little bit, squeak out an extra month of like recovery.
Yeah.
Try and make it work. And obviously with the pandemic coming down, it was kind of strange, and it still is strange. But my original plan was to start prep May 16th. But like I kind of alluded to earlier, just with being off work and having like a daily routine that I wanted, I started actually to diet amongst the first days in May. I think I started May 4th. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm always just worried that like my body's just not going to respond. I was like, I only had like a half year or a 6 month, 7 month off season.
Yep.
And I was really worried. So I kind of got into what I would consider a pretty big deficit right away. And the weight did come off really quick, right? So I think my top weight in the off season peaked out at 199 pounds, which for me is pretty lean because in the past, in fact, last year, I did a very long prep most of the entire year, but I started my diet at around 225.
Oh, wow.
I came down to about 170
Phew.
at the very lowest. Yeah. So obviously I was looking to make things more efficient. I don't think you'd see me at that weight again, but I knew this whole year that I had to stay a little bit tighter to make this 1 year plan feasible, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
peaked out at 199. It was definitely, I could tell it was my leanest I've ever started a prep at, because like I had things that I hadn't seen before at the end of my off season. Like I had started the prep with like some veins in my quads, pretty good hamstring separation for the most part, decent separation in my arms, forearms, and stuff. This stuff I wouldn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got into this diet a little bit early, and I think May 4th would have been like 26 weeks out or whatever, because I was planning to do, I think it was 20, 22, 23 weeks at the start, but got into it a little bit early, and then the weight dropped off pretty quick. And I kind of looked at my schedule where I was last year in terms of body weight and this year, and I just considered the fact that we just got back to the gym and how many weeks away the show was, and I found I was like a good month ahead of where I was last year.
Nice.
And then so with the gyms reopening, I was like, you know what? Let's just take a minute to get my calories back to maintenance, to get my training status back to exactly how I want it to be and how I hope it stays. Because I hope the gyms don't close again. That would not be my favorite. If it happens, it happens. But
Yeah.
I was like, let's just let my body, get back and training back to where it was. So I kind of just halted my deficit, and I've been just kind of like trying to maintain my body weight between 187 to 189 pounds. So that's where I've been the last week and a half, I would say.
Nice. So for myself, you guys know, and most people that probably follow me know that I'm now working with Cliff Wilson. Hired him. I was in touch with him last year, and it just didn't work out. Schedule-wise, financially, just wasn't ready to make that jump yet. I'd worked with the same coach basically my entire career, so it was a tough decision to make. It was nothing against him. It was purely, the chance to maybe work with Cliff one day and learn not only as an athlete, but as a coach, what his process is. So this year, with the goal of getting a pro card like you guys, I was like, you know what, let's go all in, let's make the jump, and we'll go balls to the walls this year and see what happens. So first, reaching out with Cliff, he was excited. He's like, you got a really good base, you got a good frame, there's no glaring weaknesses. The only thing, I think you need to get leaner for your shows. And I was like, oh, okay. So typically I compete in the lightweights around like 150 to 151. He wants me mid 140s, which is, that's low. That's pretty interesting.
Damn.
So we started working together, I think it was 23 weeks out from this show, 23 or 24, something like that. So right off the hop, he was like, I want to get a good chunk of prep done. Like I want to make a good dent in your prep, the first ladder of it, because obviously, we have a lot of time, but he wants me leaner. So 20 weeks to get to 150 is like very manageable. 20 weeks to get to 145, that's a little bit more of a push. So we started, I was 178, I think, something like that. That's when I finished my prep at 165 because I was supposed to compete in May. Called it off in like March, I think. It was like 10 or 12 weeks out. Got down to like 165, was looking good. And then I creeped back up because I was back and forth on whether or not I was going to try to do the fall, which, talking to you guys already know this stuff. But then we made the call to do it again. So I got up to 182, I think I had reversed out of it, but still maintained like reasonable body composition. I wasn't like far gone by no means. And then we're now, as of this morning, 168. Yeah, it's not been easy. Like, definitely not hard. It's interesting because he is not a cardio fan, which is super interesting to me. So I'm eating, as of yesterday, 2,200, and then every 7th day we jump to 33. We do a high day, but I'm only doing 2 20-minute lists. So for me, that's super foreign because I'm used to being like a pretty intense cardio kid. Like when I was like 165, I think I was doing 40 minutes almost daily. So this is interesting, but I was eating more food. So this is what I wanted out of this, right? I wanted the learning experience. So I was holding 170, like I would see like 171, then 170, then I'd creep, and then all of a sudden it was like boom, 168. So probably multiple things. Like I had, a pretty hefty leg day. You guys probably saw my stories. I was able to squat for the first time with an actual barbell on my back. So my legs were very inflamed, and my sleep was probably disrupted from that. So we think probably just a combination of those things. After a good night's sleep and some recovery, I just lost some water weight. And this morning, like you guys know, when you feel leaner, you look in the mirror and you're like, okay, obliques are a little bit tighter, shoulders a little bit rounder, right? So yeah, so I looked back at my notes, and as of this, so we'll call 168, even though it was this morning, we'll call it 20 weeks out. When I was 20 weeks out for my May show, I was 181.
Oh, damn.
So yeah,
Big
very big difference. So, even a pound a week, which is very much reasonable. And I know we'll push more at 20 weeks out. That puts me at 148, which is nuts.
Damn. Yeah, absolutely, man. Nice. Okay.
I know how you feel, man, and it was very surprising for me too. At the end of my prep last year, to see 100. I think my bottom and lowest weight was the lowest I think I've ever been on a prep, and it was 170.2, and it was really quite mentally challenging just to kind of see that, because I've been bodybuilding for so long, and I had put in a good long off season between 2016 and 2019, and I definitely did grow some muscle, definitely did make some gains, but I was literally at the bottom of my scale weight, like 6 pounds lighter than I was in 2016. But the conditioning was just way far ahead, right?
And that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and when I got on stage, that was what got me through my class and the overall, I think. I mean, there were some other factors too, but that was the main thing. If I didn't have that, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and for me, like with my goal of trying to get the card, like as a lightweight, I know that, I'm happy with my shape and overall structure. Like obviously bigger will always be the goal, but I don't think I have anything that's like, and that needs to really be worked on. I think as a whole, I don't look too bad, but I think, like you just mentioned, conditioning, right? So if we can just turn up at like 145, but just like disgustingly shredded, I'll be happy. Yeah. I'll be excited, and then see where it goes from there.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because I'll be curious to see what my stage weight is this year, because just like what you said, Connor, I think what made me kind of win my pro card as well in 2018 was, I will say, I was probably definitely the most conditioned in my class there, in all the classes for men's physique. I think I came in pretty sharp and pretty conditioned for a men's physique competitor. Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of what helped separate me from everyone else. And I was I think it was 157 or 158 is exactly what I was around on stage there. So right now, at about 20 weeks out, I'm about 178. So it'll be interesting to see where I fall. I would say I'll probably be high 150s again, right around the same, but just like what you said, Connor, hopefully a little bit more condition, because I do feel like I put on a decent amount of muscle between this, 16, 18 month off season or so here.
Nice.
Leroy, I have a question for you, actually. Does Cliff have a plan to do any sort of diet break in the midst of the prep? Just considering the fact, too, that I think we're all kind of watching how things are happening. We're going to see, these shows that are scheduled for September, do they happen? Or There's even actually a WNBF show, I think, next weekend that's going to happen without a crowd in Massachusetts. So I'm just kind of curious, as well as with you, Breton, do you have a plan to like maybe do a little diet break, hold things down for a little bit, and just see how the world's going before you do that last little push?
We haven't discussed it. I mean, when we first got together, actually, the game plan wasn't to compete this year. He was like, you know what, if you want my honest opinion, I say we wait till next spring. So I was just going to do the shows that I was going to do this year, next year. I was going to wait and do all that stuff. And I hemmed and hawed about it. And I was like, look, man, like, I honestly think for numerous factors, I want to compete this year. Like I was dead set on it, right? Number one. And when I get my head on something, it's hard to turn it off. You guys can probably attest to that. That's usually the bodybuilder mentality. My fiance and I were intending to get married next year, and we're house shopping right now. So this was supposed to be like a compete year, and the next year was like a life year. Because you go all in, right? You kind of put some other stuff on the back burner, right? And he was like, no, man, like I respect that. Like kudos to you for having that, foresight to do that. And I said, like, if we can do something in the fall, there's a show in Edmonton, and odds are, already there's less cases, right? And things are opening up. I know they posted gyms are reopening and that kind of stuff. So, I genuinely think that it'll run whether it has a crowd or not. I could care less. It sucks for my family, maybe if they can't watch it, but at the end of the day, that's not why I'm competing to be up there in front of anybody really besides judges. I really could care less. And he was like, look, man, if you want to go for it, I'm here to support you, but like we're going to start now and we're going to crunch time real hard. So
Yeah.
that's what we've been doing. It purely depends on how things go, right? If what he's envisioning for me includes a diet break, cool. If not, I mean, I don't care, right? I just want to get there and get shredded and do the thing. So, my ideal situation is things really open up and we can go to Worlds after, right? Whether it is as an amateur or as a pro, I intended to go to Worlds anyways. So ideally that happens, and then there is the Canadian Nationals in October or in December here in Toronto. So that was always kind of on my radar too. So it really depends on what happens in October to dictate what happens after that. But I mean, right now, depending on what my body does, I wouldn't assume a diet break, I guess you could say, with how much he wants me to lose and where I'm at right now. We're not behind by no means, but I don't think we're light years ahead of time where we can just be like, okay, probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we can bump things up to maintenance. Like, I just don't, I've never done that, and I don't anticipate it happening.
Right.
Yeah. Right on. And for me, honestly, that's what's kind of interesting. Like, I'm just really trying to, like I said, gain some more data and just have fun with this as in me. Like, this will be my first time fully self-coaching myself right up until a show. So what I just like to do is, I'm sure everyone else likes to do, go back through your old prep history, see what weight you were at how many weeks out, kind of assess physique pictures from a couple years ago, keep comparing things, and then just kind of see how things play out. But as of right now, I was kind of trying to do what you were talking about, Leroy. I'm really trying to put the hammer down at the start of prep here. Get a good chunk of weight off.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in a half decent spot and I'm like, okay, you know what, maybe let's diet break for a week or two. I can afford this, and then kind of move from there. But as of right now, I'm just, I got a plan in place. Things are going well. I'm dropping weight fairly quickly. I feel like I'm leaning out pretty well. And for 20 weeks out, I think my conditioning's half decent for men's physique. So I'm just going to go from here and just kind of play things by ear, week to week, and kind of see if I could fit one in essentially. But I do feel like I probably will put one diet break in at some point, maybe, halfway through or something like that. But I guess we'll kind of have to see how things go.
What's interesting, I could almost use the time period where I called off prep to when I've started with Cliff a diet break, because I started prep for May at like 192, got down to like, 165, 170, like hovered around there. So really like got 20 pounds off, then took 4 or 5 weeks to chill a little bit and then restarted prep. So, you could kind of call it a diet break, even though I did rebound up a little bit because we didn't know what was happening. But I think that probably, because really my game plan was to do May and then like go till the end of the year. So this could be a blessing in disguise where I don't have to like hold condition for basically 6 months. I can go till October, November, December and be done with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was honestly, man, that was for me mentally, that was one of the harder things I've had to do in 2018 there. So I think I hit the nail on the head. I had a 28-week prep, won my pro card at the Muscle Mayhem, and then that's when everyone was like, oh, you got to compete within the year. I was like, well, shit, what am I going to do? Like, found the closest show, which was 12 weeks away.
Yeah.
And essentially, I just held conditioning for 12 weeks. And so it was a 40-week prep for me. And for me personally, that was getting pretty long. So by the end of it, I was absolutely exhausted.
No doubt.
It's super hard. I would caution people too, if you do want to take a diet break, my advice with it would be to stop your prep, or halt your prep with the diet break before you get into that unmanageable level of conditioning, where I say unmanageable, where like you're going really slow all day, like you're pushing your physiology to be way leaner than it wants to be.
Yep.
Because I ended up doing one last year, and I didn't find it really gave me much benefit. I did feel a lot better when I was on the diet break, but it didn't save me from having to do a massive push to
Yeah.
get the conditioning that I wanted.
Yeah.
That still had to happen. And it was almost kind of demoralizing because I expected the diet break to be like, oh, I'll just go back on my calories I was on, before I hit the diet break, which was I was losing body fat on, but that was the tail end of what I could do with those calories and that activity level, right? I had to really push things no matter what. And yes, it was nice to have the break, but man, did it hit me after I came back into that deficit. I remember, and it was like a 10-week grind from there, right? So
Yeah.
No
Well,
doubt.
I'm gonna keep that in mind. That's a good idea.
And see, I'll tell you guys too. Like what I'm trying to just see is like I kind of view this as like layers of body fat that need to come off. So I know for me, going like my lowest before I halted into like I guess you could call it a diet break right now I'm on was 186.6. So I know 186.6 to 180. That's gonna come off fairly easily. There'll be some hungry days. There'll be I'll want to probably eat some more food and maybe be tired here and there, feel flat every now and again, but that will be pretty easy. So that's like one layer. And then the next layer is that whatever, probably 5 to 10 pounds that needs to come off after that. So I am totally cool to take this next layer off, and I'm down for that. After that happens, though, I want to maybe see how things are going worldwide because I don't really want to experience that pain and death feeling at the end of prep if I think there's a chance I might not get on stage.
Yeah.
And I totally understand everyone's situation is different. It's just I went through it last year as well. And I think if you do this stuff too much, you can almost become a little bit demoralized or kind of shell shocked from the experience. So I think it would really upset me if I spent that time digging to that crazy conditioning, right? And then all of a sudden the show's canceled. Then I have to recover from it for 2 months, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just feeling it out, but I'm ready to start to take the next layer off in about probably either start Saturday or start Monday. We'll see how I feel, but so basically starting 19 weeks out again. So yeah.
I know around like mid to low 160s is when I start to hurt a little bit. Right now, like I don't feel bad, honestly. Like it's the end of the day. It's been a long day, so I'm a little tired. But like as far as extreme hunger or anything like that, even on 2,200 calories, like I'm surprised actually how decent I feel. And it could be just because my expenditure, like with cardio, is next to nothing, and even at work, like my work's not physically demanding, right? So when he emailed me, it was a couple days ago when I was at 170 and I was stuck and I was getting a little frustrated, and I was like, hey man, like just from my personal experience with prepping, like I typically do more cardio. Like, do you want to throw anything in? Like, what do you think? And he's like, honestly, man, like I don't think right now, like I typically don't like to add cardio till carbs are like sub 150. I think last update they were 190 or 195 or something like that. So he's like, we still have lots of room. And before that they were like 220. He's like, so we still have lots of play room. He's like, I want you to basically like put all your efforts into your training and then rest and do nothing outside the gym as much as you can. So okay, I'll do that. So then yesterday, because I check in with him Tuesdays, yesterday set the check-in, same thing, 170. And he was like, okay. He sent me the update at 2,200, and then I woke up this morning, 168.6. So I was like, sent him a quick email, and I was like, out of nowhere, here we are. He's like, figured that would happen. Good job. Keep going. I'm like, okay. And even right now in this podcast, I know I'll wake up tomorrow lighter. I can feel it. I can feel it already.
Yeah, I know. That's cool. You can
Yeah.
Leroy, do you count steps? No? Okay, right on.
I don't. I've never been like the Apple Watch, Fitbit kind of guy. I've never been coached in that limelight, so I don't really know the whole like how. I don't really know how it's done. Really, like, do you just wear your watch and just track it constantly? I've always been like 2 by 20-minute incline treadmill or like 3 by 30-minute fasted Stairmaster. You know what I mean? Like that's always been how I've been coached and how I coach. I don't know. I've just never been one to be told to do that.
Yeah, it's cool. There's definitely no need to do it that way. Like people have been getting in shape for years before they had Apple Watches or whatever or Fitbit. They've been
Yeah.
getting, peeled out of their minds. It was something I did last year, and I used a lot of steps as expenditure to see how it worked. You can go overboard with them though. Like you can get like a detriment to your training by doing tons of steps. I mean, it's just eventually it's going to catch up with you in some capacity, right? But I was just curious too. I know Cliff is one to keep like protein really high too.
Man,
Like
my
protein.
protein's like 265 right now.
I was going to say, did he raise it relative to what you were before?
Yeah, I not much though. My last coach always was like 240, 245 was pretty normal. So having a high protein is not new to me, but definitely like what's different and what I know is the hardest part is I'm used to like cheat meals. So my previous coach was always like, okay, it was typically Saturdays, right? Saturdays I check in, Saturdays I did legs, Saturdays was a cheat meal. Saturdays was always like the highlight of the week. And it was always like burger and fries and then typically Tim Hortons chocolate chip cookies. That was my go-to. I was happier than a pig in shit. I was good. But there was no real parameters. Right? So I always got the same burger and fries, nothing fancy, tomato, ketchup. I'd either go to Five Guys or the Works, something good, but definitely not like a Wendy's or McDonald's, right? Like I was going to get something good. And then sometimes, and typically it depended how deep I was in prep, maybe 30 weeks out, it's 2 cookies, right? Maybe 20 weeks out, it's 3 cookies, right? But I always had like that freedom of basically eating like this massive cheat meal. And there's no way some days it wasn't an extra 4,000 calories, right? But that's what we always did, always worked, and never saw really any detriment. But now what's interesting is on these high days, this every 7th day, I still have macros. So I can't just be like, cheat meal, let's go. So what I've done is I fit in a burger. So I have the same like a pretzel bun I get at Costco. We slice up potato wedges, like actual potatoes, so it's like fries, and I fit it in because like I'm a meal plan guy. I don't know about you guys or how you guys prep, but like I've always done it. I prefer it. It's easy to track. I like everything I eat. I'm not force feeding anything in my stomach, and like some people love the macros. Too much thinking for me, especially on prep. Just tell me what to eat and I'll eat it. So like he sends me macros and I sit there and make a meal plan every time. Right? So I have my meal plan 6 days of the week. And then on the 7th day, it's literally just like more oats, more rice, and then a bun for that cheat meal and more potatoes. Like that's literally all I do. And that's just how I prep. That's just what I prefer.
Yeah, see, I'm pretty similar. Like I wouldn't say I have exact meal plans like for myself because I do, at the end of the night there could be some different snacks and stuff I'll throw in, but typically it's, the same couple choices for breakfast, lunch, and supper, whatever. And just like you said, I'm actually doing like 2 high days, 2 high carb days, more refeeds throughout the week. And just like you said, it's usually just more oats, more rice, stuff like that. And I like that because my very first contest season, 2016, I was a classic. If it fits your macros, throwing in a chocolate bar if I could, anything I could fit in because I just wasn't used to it, and that was a lot more challenging because when you're eating something like that, it's so much harder to stop.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So instead, like I found myself, that's when I would mess up on my macros or struggle with certain things here and there. And then 2018, just like you said, when I did just the same meals, same food selection, maybe a little bit higher volume of those foods on your refeed days, and I find that just works a lot better.
Yeah,
it's too much up here.
Thinking of food all day with macro stuff. Like 2 weeks ago, it was my fiance's brother's birthday or week 2, whatever it was, and I was like, and they were of course gonna have like dinner and dessert and stuff, and I was like, I'm fine with like my burger and stuff, but I was like, maybe I could fit in like some Oreos. They're pretty low calorie, right? 2 or 3 Oreos. So I sat there like staring. I have like all my sheet of like all my meals on the fridge written down. So I'm just staring at it, right? And I'm like, okay, if I pull this, I could maybe fit, 2 or 3 Oreos. Maybe like 10, 15 minutes goes by and I'm like, fuck this, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. I want to say this too. This is something that it's been on my mind lately because I dealt with it with a few clients, and I started to just, when I had some downtime, just kind of looked at this myself. For anyone who's free form macro type and they're changing ways they're cooking things, or just throwing in different stuff every day, you better be really confident and really good at tracking things, because there's a lot of variability that can come into things, especially if you're just taking nutritional value off of MyFitnessPal. So one thing I realized is I had some clients who would do potatoes, and I was using a value of potatoes based off of like a baked potato in the oven that was, a cooked value. And I would say cooked value, but the thing is, they would put them in the air fryer, and the air fryer shrinks them down, right? So since then, I've changed all my clients. If they have potatoes on their meal plan, it's based off of raw, and I tell them, cook it how you want, but it needs to be measured raw. And there's incredible variability for just different things like that. And then there's different things like, you have to be so hyper aware too of just putting oil on things. Like, how much oil are you using on your food that you're not accounting for, right? So if you're all over the place, with your counting, you can really make prep more difficult up here, I would say, because you can be like, well, why am I not losing weight? And then you could be hundreds of calories off, and you could tell yourself you have metabolic damage because you're actually eating, like, let's say like 2,300 calories, right? But you think you're eating like 1,900 or whatever, right? And you're like, my body's screwed, bodybuilding messed me up, what I mean? So
like stuff like that is so true, right? Like, cooking oils are a big one. I simply just use coconut spray. Like when I cook eggs or something, I just spray the pan lightly. But like last weekend, we were at my parents for a barbecue, and my mom was I brought everything, but my mom was making like potatoes, and I think she was like barbecuing chicken and stuff. So I was like, okay, like I'll bring my stuff, but like if she's cooking potatoes I can eat, then I'll eat them, because that way I save my potatoes for the next meal. But she put like olive oil all over them and baked them in the oven. They looked unreal. And she was like, can you have these? And I was like, no. She's like, you can have potatoes. I was like, no, like that extra olive oil, like, nah, I'm not doing it, right? So, 100%. Stuff like that. Even like, I don't know how you guys feel, but like the 0-calorie sauces and creamers and stuff, like I don't
calorie. There's something in there.
Like I don't have an issue with them, right? But it's just like for people that try to like really abuse them, I think that can be detrimental, especially like from a competition perspective. Like just all I can't pronounce what's in those things, so I don't want to like dump that stuff all over. Like the fanciest I'll get is like the pancake one and a little bit of oats. I'll do like a quick right? Mix that in there, but like I'm not using the dressings on salads, and I'm not doing that stuff, right? That's just not, I don't want to do that.
No, I can tell you. You go ahead, Breton. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to your point. I know it's crazy. I'm the same way as you, but you always follow some of the competitors that they go through a bottle of Walden Farms maple syrup every day or something like that. I don't know if I would be doing that.
No.
See, the thing about that stuff is your urge to find things like that are taste good, that you can rationalize. It becomes so much more an intense desire as you get leaner and leaner, right? So a lot of people I'm coming back to this whole metabolic adaptation thing, but I talk to a lot of clients about this, and a lot of people, and they think, they don't understand what they're eating, but the more your body fat gets lower, the more cravings you have, and the more you're adding things in that you think are 0 calories. So in goes the chewing gum, pack a day, sugar-free, sugar alcohol, doesn't matter, body doesn't absorb it, but it's actually has like, maybe 40 calories in it. Walden Farms going in, and all of a sudden they've taken themselves, like they're at least eating like 100 more calories than they thought they were. And I'll be honest, I've been bad for this in the past. I used, I wouldn't go through a bottle a day, but I was using a little bit of Walden Farms chocolate, here and there on some stuff, and it does kind of become like an obsession. So that's one thing for me I want to keep away, and just really acknowledge that, your urge to do these things is so much greater as your body fat gets lower.
Yeah.
Crazy.
No, for sure. So let's come back a little bit. So we're 20 weeks out. Are you confident things are gonna? Where are you at from scale 1 to 10? 10 being this show's going 100%. 1 being no chance in hell. Where are you at?
You want to go first, Connor? There.
6.
Okay, I'll take a 6.
It'll probably happen, but man, it's hard to tell. There's a lot of things that are going to have to go right for it to happen. Let's put it that way.
I think we're on the uphill though. I think like we're closing
That's why I
it.
gave her a 6. It's out
Yeah,
of 5.
yeah. I think we're closer to yes than no.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm pretty much right around that 6 marker, but I think as more of the weeks go on, it slightly gets higher for me just because I know a few people live out that way, and it just seems like things are steadily getting better. Knock on wood. Hopefully, it continues that way.
Yep.
We talked about gyms opening up, hair salons, all that kind of stuff. So, like you said, Leroy, if there's if there's no crowd, if that's worst case scenario, then great. That would be awesome. But like I said, I'm probably around a 6, getting close to a 7 because I just try to stay optimistic. I really do hope this show happens.
That's what we'll title this podcast, Getting Close to a 7.
Getting close to a 7, almost there. Not quite, but
I know, like, I don't know if it was last weekend or the weekend before, like an NPC show in the States ran without a crowd. So,
Nice.
I mean, they're happening, right? Like, it's
yeah.
there's no reason why we can't, especially out there, right? Ontario's a little bit different animal, but like out west, even down if there were shows where you guys were, if there is still some restrictions, whether they like what I think would be helpful is like if they take, everybody's separate, they like bring the bodybuilders in to like the venue, right? Then do like 15, 20 minutes to like get that all situated. Then they bring Classic in, prejudging finals, do it all in one shot, right? No audience. So like at any given time, there might only be like 15 people in the auditorium at once if you include judges and officials. You know what I mean? Like I think it could be, if they want to do it, it can be done.
I agree with that, absolutely.
I think as well, in terms of if it's going to happen or not, it's going to really come down to some of the people in our government or each individual province who kind of decide how they want to respond to what's going to happen. So obviously with all this, the economy crashed and it was the debate. Do we maybe risk a few infections and a few deaths for the economy staying afloat, or which do we like better? And it could, there could be a second wave in the fall for sure, but they might not respond to it in the same way that they do given the previous information they collected over the last 6 months. They're just, they might have new data on this that says, well, the morbidity rate is only really in like the 85 plus area, and we feel okay to reopen things, even without a vaccine. It really depends, where they come together with that in terms of like how open the country will be by the fall, I would say. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watch much Joe Rogan, but like he's had so many people on that basically have said like it's not as bad as we thought. We thought this was gonna like blanket the entire world and just kill millions of people, but like the average, this one quote that he said like blew my mind. The average age that you can die from this virus is greater than the average age that you actually die. So basically like us three can die from normal life and be still like younger than the average age that this virus is killing. So basically like if you're older, then yes, you are more at risk, but for most people it seems to be a pretty shitty flu and then you get over it.
Yeah.
And now they're seem to be saying that if you're asymptomatic, you can't even transmit it. So if I have it and don't have any symptoms, then it's kind of just like this mute infection that I have that doesn't go anywhere else, which is like perfect.
I think that is the big fear behind it, because when it first comes out, no one really knows how it's being transmitted. So once there's more data on how it's transmitted, it'll be a lot more clear how to proceed as a nation or as a worldwide. What's the best course of action? So
cool. So first pro shows. This is going to be picking your brains a little bit. How are we feeling? Are we pumped? We nervous? We excited? What's going to happen?
Yeah. So for me, well, this will be my second pro show.
That's correct.
Just because I did the Edmonton one, the first pro show, and I was pretty nervous for that one. I can't lie, just because you're like, all right, I'm stepping up with the big boys here. You know what I mean? Shit's getting real.
Yeah.
But no, I had a great experience, and then for this one, I think there'll be maybe a few similar competitors, maybe who I competed against already. So I'm just I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good time.
Was the Edmonton show big, like from other shows you've done?
You know what? It was a decent size. I think in my pro class there was 6 or 7 of us. which was a good size. When I did the Muscle Mayhem, yeah, so there's only one pro class of 6 or 7 of us. When I did the Muscle Mayhem, there was class like A and B with about 14 competitors total. I think there was about 7 in each class.
Yep.
But I mean, for pro competitors versus amateur, it's obviously going to be a little bit different. But yeah, no, it was a good size show. It was ran smoothly. Everything went pretty good. That's another reason why I picked to do this show. I think everything was ran very well done.
Cool.
Good location. Everything was just set up nicely. The venue, they had the host hotel right next door. Everything was just done.
Oh,
really
that's
well.
nice.
So,
That's
yeah,
mint.
it was a good experience for me all around. So nothing to complain about. So I said, why not do it again?
I would say for me, maybe this will change, but I feel a little bit less pressure this year than I did relative to last year. I knew I absolutely needed to be crazy 100% peeled to like win my pro card, right? And I feel like since I'm in a little bit of a different level now, I'm kind of just giving myself a little bit more, not trying to come in worse or anything, but I'm just saying that the expectation to like win your first pro show for me wasn't as high built up in my head as to win my pro card.
Absolutely.
So I just I'm kind of just letting my mind, get into this idea that I'm a pro natural bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna get up there as best as I can and see where the chips fall. And I mean, it's hard to know what kind of lineup we're gonna see, right? So maybe the lineup will be crazy because all the other pro shows will be canceled and people will come to Canada, because things are going to be great. Coronavirus is over or whatever. I don't know if that'll be it, but it could be a stacked lineup or it could be very depleted, right? I could maybe there'll only be like one other pro, who really knows? In terms of how I feel of how I'm looking, I actually think over my 6 to 7 month off season, I did make a few improvements. They aren't massive, but they are some important ones.
Those calves, bro.
What's the calves? The calves are definitely came up, and that was certainly something that I had to really go over. And it's some stuff that I took in some information from people who were just really talking about like this is how your form should be on standing calf raise, and I figured out a few new things like just to try and push that ankle forward really like more than I was doing before, and to keep the knees just nice and straight. And I realized I stopped programming like seated calf raises because I just want to get less tension on that soleus, more tension on the gastroc. So like things like that helped. And I trained my back differently. So every back workout, I really focused on getting into the lats first and really choosing a movement that I could feel my lats where they insert at the spine work. So that was more of like a row movement where I could have a brace and just kind of really push my elbow down into my hip and use a little bit of spinal flexion to get that last little bit of lat contraction. So that I think helped quite a bit because now my lats, as before, for me on my physique, they insert really low, but as soon as they would get down to this point, they were just really thin and small. Now they kind of just have a little bit more size as they come down here. So that's that's one of the feedback I got when I was in New York. The head judge touched me on the lower lats. He's like, you got to build these up, right? So that was like, every back workout was different because before I was doing more rows to my chest, trying to hit more mid traps rhomboid area because I was trying to fill that out. But yeah, once I got on stage last year, I saw I just needed a little bit more lats. So I thought that had come up. I tried to bring up my rear delts as well because I noticed from the rear double bicep, you see the 3 heads of the delt, and my head pretty strongly developed anterior and middle deltoids, but not so much the kind of sweep coming from the bottom up your shoulder. Mm-hmm. So I worked on that. I trained rear delts really hard. I think they're like a little thicker there. So
nice.
As long as I could tough it out and come pretty lean like I did last year, I think you'll see improved physique. And then I could be really happy just to know that I did improve my physique over a year, which is pretty hard to do in natural bodybuilding for sure.
Yep,
so
for sure.
That's kind of how I'm feeling.
Yeah. See, I've got all your emotions from last year because I got some weight on my shoulders.
Yeah.
That's all right, though. That's all right. We accept the challenge.
Good, it'll make you better, and that drive is what's going to get you through when prep starts to get tough. So just keep that in mind as you're slugging through those last few weeks, getting to your leanest condition for sure.
Hell yeah. All right, boys. Any closing thoughts? Anything we want to share at 19.6 weeks out or whatever the hell we are?
Well, I'll look back on this, but I'm not too hungry yet, so that's good.
Yeah, soon we're gonna be like, man, hey, where are we going to eat after? What are we getting for food after? You guys,
Oh,
are you guys
that's a good
burger or
question.
pizza?
Um,
Don't say sushi. I'm not a sushi guy. Don't say sushi.
Oh,
I,
see, I'll do
I
something. I need something greasy after that. I need something better than sushi.
All right,
I go for a burger. That would be
burger.
me. Burger.
Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, for all you viewers, we're not bodybuilders. We're going to eat food. See ya. Bye. Okay, boys. I think what we should do, I think would be cool, is doing this. What do you say? Every 4 weeks through prep? Be kind of cool.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
So
Let's do it.
yeah, 20 weeks out. Do it every 5 weeks. Yeah, 20, 15, 10. Yeah, that'll be good. Every 5 weeks. Every 5 weeks, let's do this.
Okay. Sweet.
What you got to do is take a screenshot of our face.
Yeah, the face. I was literally just going to say that. It's just going to progressively get skinnier and skinnier.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, dudes. All these guys' info will be linked down below. You can follow them on Instagram, and they'll be documenting their preps, as will I. So if you guys enjoyed this stuff, get used to it, because every 5 weeks we're going to do it again. So thanks a lot, boys. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, people. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with future episodes, and we'll see you guys in the next one.